Almost 20 years ago, I remember walking with one of my monk students who, thanks to TikTok, I've been able to reconnect in Katetha, in Kotaka. And surprisingly, the conversation steered or veered towards why it's important to authenticate a true Tulku or an incarnate Lama. And he was asking me that question at that point in time. And I shared what little I knew or what little experience I had on that subject with him. And I guess it made sense to him because he didn't ask me any further questions. I wanted to talk about how we are so lucky if you're a Buddhist. We are asked, in fact, we are implored to authenticate who you are going to make your Tsawi Lama, your root teacher. And similarly, while that is allowed in Buddhism, I thought the call of the hour, or as we find ourselves in the age of AI and social network and social media and online streaming, I think it is equally important that we authenticate and verify who we listen to on podcasts. Hi, my name is Karma. I thought I'd talk about P for podcast. Maybe a year back, 2 years ago, I was in an interview by Humans of Thimphu. And after the interview was complete, I had expressed my interest in wanting to pursue and start a podcast. And one of the person who was interviewing me shared that they had tried to do that with Humans of Thimphu, but to no avail because they didn't find many listeners or takers. I think in the past year or 2 years since that interview, things have drastically changed. It's a personal observation of mine that while India the general sentiment is they will vilify what is happening in the US, but given a gap of maybe 5 to 10 years, whatever happens in the US eventually finds its way to India, and similarly it finds its way to Bhutan as well. And maybe the gap is shorter now with smartphones and with advancement in IT. But without digressing, I'm a huge fan of podcasts, so many of you who have met me recently have heard me talk about how one of my biggest contribution which I find to my family is in the dishwashing department. I've even made a claim that I would challenge anyone on a dishwashing contest. And the way I do it is I get a podcast playing, and while I'm doing the dishes, I listen to the podcast. And I imagine myself to be more informed and more educated and more literate thanks to the many amazing personalities that I listen to. But having said that, just like how I started this video today, while Buddhism allows us, and it comes from the man himself, the historical Buddha Shakyamuni, when he says that just like gold, treat his dharma in a similar fashion by authenticating whether the gold is the purity of the gold. I think that over the years has translated as we now have, with Vajrayana tradition, it's guru and shiksha, a guru and disciple relationship that we have. And the Bible that I consider the words of my perfect teacher, there is a whole chapter dedicated to how we can authenticate and how we need to test and see who you want to make your root guru. while we now call ourselves modern, and we find ourselves in a space and time where modern technology permeates every aspect of our lives, I think it is very important that we help our children or the younger generation to be media literate by teaching them tricks and hacks on how to safeguard themselves from online trolls and ill-meaning people. But more than that, today, while I'm talking about podcast, I feel that it is so important that we listen to the right podcast and we treat podcasters almost on the status of maybe even more important than root gurus and Savi Lamas now, because we spend so much time with them. I know of many friends who fall asleep listening to true crime. Because on one of these videos I had shared also about my younger daughter, how even the tiniest and the smallest thing that happens during the span of a day makes her say that this is the best day of her life. And I keep telling her that she sees beauty because she feels beauty. And this I'm not saying this as her father. Being her father and seeing how she looks at things and how her perception and how she spends the day, I have come to realize that if you want to see love outside, then you have to be able to feel love within. And much of it has to do with what we surround ourselves with. Do we surround ourselves with hate, anger, crime, discontentment, or do we surround ourselves with joy, contentment, gratitude? Because it's not rocket science. What you feel is what you will see. And that's what I wanted to share today. Funny thing is, until I started to press the record button today, I had absolutely no idea of what I would talk about. But just before I started to record, I thought that it's important that I highlight and bring to people's attention, at least those of you who follow me, that not to take it too lightly who you're listening to and who you're watching, because it will inform how you see the world as well, and by virtue of that, how you feel as well. So thank you so much, and I'll catch you in the next one.